It's okay. Well, I guess I'm still proud to be part of maybe the greatest event in college basketball other than the Final Four. And as we said, all eyes will be in Chicago tomorrow. And it is one of the best nights of college basketball. If it wasn't for you reporters or media people screwing it up, I think the coaches had the poll 1, 2, 3, and 4. The media made it 1, 2, 4, and 5. Could have been a happening, but all four teams are ranked in both polls in the top five. And as Matt said, I think 1 versus 2 has happened like 40 times or something, and that's not many when you consider all the games and all the events. And pretty good that we've been part of 2 of the last 3, and with the Kentucky game and us, and now Duke and us. But I think most part for me, since the inception of this 7 years ago, is I think it's good for us. I think it's good for our program. I think it's good for our university, our fan base in Chicago, and I think it's good for the players. And hopefully that's why they came to play against the best people. I know even kids that I've called and talked to, everybody's excited about the opportunity to play in these big games. As far as Duke goes, the addition of Bagley at the end took a great team to elite level as far as talent. He's averaging 24 points and 10 or 11 rebounds. That just shows you how talented he is with a talent-laden group that they already had. To add a player of his caliber in there has been, overwhelming in some ways. With Carter, they possess a very good big front court, and we recruited Gary Trent, so we know how good a player he is. And then, of course, Grayson Allen lit us up as a freshman in the Final Four, and is kind of just hung in there, and a little bit of injuries in that. Otherwise, who knows if he'd even be there. But he is a very, very electric player that can get it going like that. And so they have 2 tremendous shooters. In Duval, they had the nation's best point guard, and the 2 guys up front. And then when you add on a couple of players back from last year, Delure is a kid I really like, a 6'9", 10 kid. He's a sophomore this year, and Bolden is the other player that was sick the first game they played in the second, but he too was a McDonald's guy and a very good player. So with 2 knockdown shooters that are shooting way over 50% from the 3, and arguably the number 1 player in the country in Bagley, this is maybe as talented or the most talented. And I think the difference with a Duke and a Kentucky is, even a few years ago when we played them in the Final Four, the Cook kid was incredible for them. He was an incredible leader. This year, when Grayson Allen, being a senior, being through all that, even though they have a lot of youth, they have a very experienced, and arguably their best player too is a senior who's been through the wars. So we're excited about it. We know it's going to be a heck of a challenge. I think we're playing a little better. I know we've been shooting a little better. I think it'll come down to who defends and rebounds the best. They've struggled a little bit from the line. It's been one of our bright spots that not only have we shot better, but we've gotten to the line a lot more. So 2 tall, big teams. Hopefully some of our veterans, will help us on that front line, and that'll be a big part of the game. Questions?
Tom, I'd like to ask you about Jaren. A lot of young stars like him, they're very impressed with themselves. He's not, but I've been surprised with his basketball IQ. It seems to be extremely high. Have you seen that?
He does have a high basketball IQ. When your dad's an NBA player, that probably helps. He grew up. I still talked to Steve Smith yesterday, and when Smitty talking about when he played with the Spurs, and Jaren was only 2 or 3 years old, so he kind of grew up in that. His dad is a coach now a little bit, so just another one of those coaches' sons. But I too was impressed by the way Jaren played the other night. I mean, he didn't even take many shots, and I still think we haven't seen that part of his game yet because it will be there. It is there in practice, but his defense is getting better. He's rebounding his block shots. He's pretty active. He's pretty athletic, and as you say, pretty heady. Can make plays. Knows where he's got to be. Knows what he's got to do. That's helping us a lot right now.
Sorry.
It's not like we're going anywhere, guys.
No,
You can each have your turn.
Yeah. Last year in that game against Kentucky, in this, Miles talked about how poorly he played, but how he was pushing so hard to, just he knew so many guys and he wanted to be the star of the game. How much has he? I mean, I think we've seen a lot how he's changed in the last year. How do you think he will approach this sort of game now differently after going through some of that stuff last year, especially that Kentucky game on a big stage?
Did he say he only played poorly? Because it was worse than that. Okay, yeah. You know what? That was an important game to Miles, like it would be any kid, And I'm not sure we as a team were ready for that game last year. That was one of the more talented Kentucky teams. We're kind of facing guys at the wrong times. I looked at Kentucky yesterday and I think they got a long way to go. But this will be one of the most talented Duke teams, at least in youth, that I've ever seen them have. But I think Miles has grown now and matured a little bit. I told him to talk to Jaren about that because Jaren played against a lot of those guys too. And, you can get too hyped for a game. You can get, especially in basketball, where you gotta have your head on. Miles didn't play bad offensively. He just turned the ball over a million times. And it wasn't a lack of effort or a lack of caring or a lack of being casual. It was a lack of trying to do too much. And I fault him for that, but it's hard to fault him a lot. I kind of appreciate that about him. So I think he's grown a little bit, and hopefully he can help our younger guys who haven't been through that as much. But I also think that experience last year that humbled everybody was a good experience. It was one of the few times, maybe the only time in this 7 games that we were blown out. I don't know, what are we, 3-3, we said? Yeah, and what are...
One team is 4-2, 2 or 3-3, one's 2-4.
So, we're hanging right in there with everybody else, but last year was the one time it was a blowout game, and it was a blowout game because I don't think we were ready for that stage. It was one of the few times that I can say that. I think we're ready for the stage, but we got to play a team that's awfully talented and well coached.
Is Jaren your best matchup for Bagley, and what do you think of his combination of size and talent and all this stuff that you see?
Bagley's? Well, he's averaging 24 points, 10 rebounds, and that speaks volumes in itself. But I think Jaren is one of the better matchups for him. It'll be interesting. They played against each other before. Bagley's very good in the open court, handles the ball a little better than I thought, can shoot a 3. I wouldn't say that's his forte, which means he'll hit 2 or 3 against us, but I think it will be a good matchup. I think we match up pretty well with them. The problem is in Grayson Allen. I mean, Gary Trent is a very good player, but in Grayson Allen, you get a player that he gets it going, and he's, really, really, really good. And Duval is a guy that's averaging, 10 or 11 points a game, but he's got 20 assists and 1 turnover, so he hasn't made many mistakes with the ball. He's got a couple pretty good guys. Those 2 guys are shooting, I think, between them 58 or 60% from the 3 in the 2 games. So it's a good way to get assists if guys are making shots. But I think Jaren, and I think that'll be a good matchup. I'm anxious to see it just as much as I think you are. It's going to be good. I know one thing. I think my guy's ready for it, and I think their guy is too.
The growth between that game against Kentucky and the game against Duke at Duke last year, I guess, to be in that game down in Cameron, and I guess what do those guys take from that last year into this year?
Well, I think they all want Matt Van Dyke back because, he played a lot in that game, and we played pretty well other than that one stretch. But, playing pretty well isn't where we're at now either. I mean, this isn't about trying to play well. This is about trying to win games. And I do think we grew up a lot in that game, and considering the travel and what we went through last year, we went down and competed very well for probably 35 minutes of that game. But that's what Duke's pretty good at. I think in the last game, I think the team had 18 turnovers for like 35 points. At halftime it was 9 turnovers, and Duke scored 18 points off them. They played a lot more zone, which was a little surprising. But with all that size, they can almost stretch from one. I think they got 6 players with a 7'1" wingspan or more, 7 foot. So length is a big advantage for them, not just size, but length. And so I think we've got to, continue to grow, which is what we're trying to do. It's why we play these games. It's why we get these opportunities. But you also got to win these games, and I think that's, we've won some, but not enough.
This is bad timing for this question because it's going to sound silly based on what you just said, but I'll ask it anyway.
Is it baseball season yet?
No.
Go ahead.
I just going to say, the mass media and the fans are going to make a big deal out of who wins or loses this game because that's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
But in the bigger scheme, I know you want to win, but isn't it good just to have a game like this? I mean, if you win by 3 or lose by 3, it's November 14th, for crying out loud.
That's true, but on the other side of the coin is learning how to win big games and big events is also part of the things. Learning how to play in those games is important when your program's at a certain level. Learning how to win those games, I guess my example would be I watched the end of the Alabama game, and they didn't play very well the whole game, but they knew how to win and learned how to win. And I think that's just another step in the millions of things that I still have to accomplish, that we have to accomplish here, is figuring out how to win, knowing how to win, and then translating that into game after game after game. So I think it is important in that respect. It's not from the standpoint of we're not football, and 1 or 2 losses doesn't end it. And I told my team in the first meeting Saturday morning that winning the game does not accomplish any of our goals technically, and losing the game does not accomplish or does not ruin any of our goals. And you're right about that, but learning how to win big games on big stages is really what you want to do if you're in programs like this. And let's face it, they've done a better job of it than we have.
Tom, tomorrow night's game is a neutral venue, of course, but you guys have fared well in this event when it's been in Chicago. So even though you're taking on Duke, do you think there might be a bit more of a vocal crowd presence that, may help you guys a little bit more?
You hope so. We have a lot of alums there, although Mike's from there, so maybe he has his whole family there, and it'll make a difference. I don't know, but there's no question that I think all 4 teams will be well represented in Chicago. No knowledge of this, but I'd be willing to bet we have probably more alums than any of them, just because of the number of alums we have and the fact that Chicago is a place where a lot of our alums end up. The problem will be, can anybody get tickets? It's been sold out forever. And that too is, I just hope that we all, we, our fans, our university, appreciate what an opportunity it is to play in these games. When Matt says 40 times, one has played 2, and we played in 2 of the last 3. That doesn't mean anything. It just means that, when we started this whole deal, when I did, in my era, it was to get consistency. We've done some of that. It was play against the best people. We've done some of that. It was beat the best people. We've done some of that, not the same sum as the other two. And that's the mission ahead of us now, is we've got to get more consistent in beating the best. And our fans would help. I'll take help from anybody, you know. If you want a referee, it doesn't matter to me. I'm not proud. I just want to win a game.
Tom, talking about the outside shooting in the first couple games, are you okay with the shot selection? Is it just not them going down or anything
You know,
you like to see differently?
I think it was the first game I wasn't pleased with. The last couple, I've been very pleased with the shot selection. Now, we did shoot better in the last game, and we did shoot a lot better this week in practice. It's hard for me to be upset about it because we shot so well all spring, summer, and fall. If we didn't do that, I mean, you know, some of you guys saw us play more than I saw. You saw Moneyball, you saw this, you saw that. I think it's nothing I'm going to worry about or panic about. And if we miss them, we better get better at the offensive boards, which we are doing a better job of. We're doing better at taking the ball to the hole. We're averaging 25 free throws a game. Last year, I think after 4 or 5 games, we were at like 13 or something. So, you know, everybody wants to shoot the ball well, but I just want to win games. I think we got to take care of it better. And yet, even in that, as bad as it looked in the last game, I think we had 5 or 6 offensive fouls on moving screens in that. If we didn't have a lot of the other ones, coaches would accept that, especially early in the year. You know, we're trying to be a better screening team, a more physical team than we've been the last couple of years. And with more size, we're going to get them with the rule changes on where you can put your legs. And, you know, pretty soon we're going to have refs out there measuring, you know, is he too wide? Is he too short? You know, I don't know. But that is one of my other big concerns, especially playing Duke, who turns turnovers. They're not maybe a running team off made baskets in that, or even rebounds sometimes. I mean, they'll run, but where they really run, where they excel the most is off of those turnovers, and they've got 10 steals, and they've turned all of them into baskets.
I don't think you were terribly pleased with Nick the other night. And just kind of what does he have to do to elevate his game, especially going against Carter?
Well, I think thank God he's had a good week of practice. You know, sometimes Nick is, because he's been, you know, he had a very, very good summer, but distractions sometimes, you know, get to Nick, and it could be for a million different reasons. I think sometimes our guys have some pressure on, and some guys are ready for that pressure, and some guys aren't. You know, Nick's still a very young player who came off of a very good offensive freshman season, but coming in with little hype. And, you know, like everybody, they have to learn to adjust to that. And then when you do get some hype, you have to learn to adjust to the pressure of that. And I just thought the other night he was not with it. And that hasn't been the case normally. And I think it's part of the growing process and adjusting to the different things. And he's had a very, very good 3 days of practice since. So we went 2 days, 1 day, and he was sharp all the time. So I think he'll play well, and he's going to need to play well. Carter's a good player. They'll bring Bolden in, who's very long and a good player. Those two guys are a little more physical than maybe Bagley is. And Nick is, you know, being physical does not bother Nick or Gavin. So those guys are going to have to play well against them.
But did you feel like you got a little bit a better idea of the rotation and how many minutes you want to play each guy?
You know, yeah and no. You know, we were talking about Ben Carter today, you know, and he's not in basketball shape yet, but he's really got a high basketball IQ and could help us in some of these games. For the most part, other than that, maybe it was pretty good, you know. Nick's thing screwed it up a little bit because we sat him a little bit in that second half. But the first half, we thought we did a very good job. We tried to get Miles out early, make sure we get him some kind of rest, and then get on a rotation. We looked at back in the day when we scripted it more before. That helped a little bit. But I don't, you know, it'll be 5, 6, 7 games yet before we really know where Carter and even Kenny Goins and Ben and Schilling are. You know, it's going to be, and that's going to change our rotation a little bit. trying to play Ben at the 4 a little, and we're trying to play Kenny at the 3 a little bit with the injury to Kyle. So that's changed it a little bit too. But I don't think our rotation's going to be where I would like it for a couple of weeks yet.
Tom, Coach K gets his 1,000th win at Duke on Saturday. First off, did you talk with him about that? And then what's his place in the history of college basketball?
Well, I did congratulate him on it. I still say if I added up all of our games and all of our practice scrimmages, I don't have 1,000 wins here. That's an incredible number. Speaks volumes for what he's done, and I think his place in college basketball is well chronicled. And I'm glad. I hope he keeps winning other than tomorrow night, because I think, for me, it just gives me more motivation on what the best have done, and gives me things I'd like to accomplish here before I'm done. So, he's done it this way. He's got a different team than he's had before, usually more guard-oriented. He's got 2 very good guards, maybe 3, but this team is more size-oriented than most that he's had.
Getting back to Chris's question on the rotation with taking Miles out really early and then bringing. Do you like him with that second unit? Their first wave, he came back in. It seemed like, is that something that you like? Sort of that setup.
I kind of like Miles in any unit, to be honest with you, but that was the first time we really tried to do that, to try to get him out early, just because we'd made him go such long stretches, and we're going to try to use those timeouts a little bit, where he still might play a lot of minutes, but sometimes it's easier said than done. We're going to try to do that against Georgia, and then McQuaid and Langford got in the foul trouble, and they were sitting there. So, I mean, Miles is starting to become a better leader too. So that's another reason it's nice to have him with both groups sometime, although we're not platooning like we did in a few preseason games. I think Miles is, he's accepted just about anything we've asked him to do. And we'll take a look at that as time goes on, whether we keep taking him out, right then, and then getting him a few minutes, including the 16-minute timeout, and whether we can do that once around the 8 or 10-minute. That's what we're going to try to look to do, and see if we can get him more rest time without less minutes.
With all due respect to last year's roster, Nick didn't have to day in and day out go against the size of a Ben and Jaren or a Gavin and Xavier who want to bang him, who love it. And I'm just curious, has that affected him a little bit, you think, mentally, because he didn't have that in practice last year?
Yeah, I think so. To be honest with you, I do. Where I think it's going to help him in the long run. I think it's hurt him a little bit in the short run, because he couldn't just take the ball and he goes up with it now, and some people are swatting it, or he's getting banged, as you say. I mean, Xavier is, he's Alan Agagne with a little more offensive poise to him. He enjoys hitting people. Be a hell of a football player. But I do think, it's not as easy for Nick to do things. And I do think he's trying to find his way right now, and that's where sometimes more frustrated. But I do think in the long run, it's really going to help him, because he gets that every day. And once he learns how to adjust to it, which he will, because he could get that shot off against a lot of people last year. Just not quite as easy in practice this year as he did it last year. And I think it's hurt him a little bit. He's shooting pretty well from the line. He's improved in those areas. He's better on the ball screen defense until he doesn't focus in on it, and then he's not as good, which is the same kid most kids go through.
Duke's obviously shown a decent amount of 2-3 already, a lot of that 1-2-2, three-quarter court stuff. Where is Cassius at in terms of identifying defenses quickly, getting you into the offense that you want, and when they're changing defense?
He's great at all of that. What he's got to still continue to improve on is his voice to get others. He knows where he wants to get. He knows he can read all the things. He's just got to bark a little more. He's got to be more assertive in what he says to guys because he is the coach on the floor out there. And but he can, reading all those things, I don't see any problem. You know, he's going to go against a good player too. Duvall's a very good player. I keep talking about the other two, and I say Duvall has 21 assists, 1 turnover, and he's got the most steals on the team, I think, and 8 steals on the team. So he'll have his work cut out for him. But I think Cassius has really improved in a lot of areas, and just like we said, and we hoped he would, maybe the last one to make the big jump. I mean, he's still got to get better defensively and all that, but it would be vocally, you know, because it's knowledge is not as good if you're not expressing it, you know. It doesn't do good to be knowledgeable unless you're a knowledgeable wrestler or a knowledgeable golfer, you know. Then it works because you're the only one you have to worry about. But when we have to rely on his knowledge because it's very high, sharing it with guys that knowledge isn't as high. And that's what a good quarterback and a good leader does, and that's what he is getting better at.
Not many programs have an edge on you. Nobody has the edge Duke does. You don't play the games, but does the 2-11 stick in your craw at all?
Every day. But, you know, I went through that too, and, you know, the one difference with Duke, I think in those 11 games, they've been ranked in the top 10, all of them. I think 10 of the 11, they've been ranked in the top 6. We've played, I think, 3 or 4 times down there. They're all good excuses that really shouldn't sit well with you or our fans, but doesn't sit very well with me. But the truth of it is, they've beaten us, you know, and they've beaten us, and there have been some fights, been very few one-sided games, but it's that's what I said. That's the next step for us. We have to learn to win big games on big stages. There's no bigger stage than this tournament. There's no bigger stage than playing Duke. I mean, we can argue who's the winningest team for hundreds of years and whether, you know, it's Kentucky or this. I mean, the best team in my era in the last 35 years has been Duke. And so the nice thing is we've played them 11 times. Most people would duck them. We're playing them. We're playing them in different events. Sometimes we're playing them in NCAA tournaments. Sometimes we're playing them in Sweet 16, Elite Eights. You know, so that's the good news. The bad news is we're not beating them. And I say it with total respect that, you know, that's what we have to do. I say that respect for us and them. But if that doesn't change, I haven't accomplished what I want to accomplish here. And we're going to try to keep playing them, and we're going to try to keep knocking on the door, and sooner or later that door's got to open. But that's valid criticism, you know, I think. But it's not that we're not working at it, and it's not that we're not there. It's give them credit. They're damn good, and they've been damn good. Every single time we played them. I think one time we were rated higher than them, and that was when they got upset up in Alaska and came to our place. And we were a 6 or 5, and they were a 6, I believe. And ironically, that was the only time we played them here, and ironically, the worst score of all the scores. So, you know what? I feel good at where our program is. It's now a team's got to be able to beat a team, and we have not done very well against Duke, but it has no bearing on anything. It's not. It's a different team every year, and they've got a different team every year. And I think we both got good teams this year. I think we're both young. We've got a few more sophomores. They got, you know, maybe arguably a Player of the Year candidate as a senior who's been through 4 years of wars, and is a very good player. So. We'll see what we can do, but we're looking forward to the challenge. We really are, and looking forward to the night, looking forward to the event, and looking forward to doing what we said we were going to do, and that's try to get better every game. better is good enough, we're going to come back victorious. If better is not good enough, we're going to keep working at it. Anything else? All right, guys, thanks. See you there. Enjoy. Hey, I think our soccer team is figuring out where they go. They're up in my office right now.